Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. A certain issue is kind of taking its rounds in the fighting game community, and as it approaches rapidly, we see more and more people start to talk about said issue. What issue is this exactly? Well, to start things off, let me just play a video for you. Let me play just a little video so you guys can get the idea.
Fight! Perfect. You win.
So, for those of you who have no fucking idea what I'm talking about here or what this trailer is, this is essentially a teaser that a very reputable big esports team called 100 Thieves, they are teasing picking up a Street Fighter player. And this has some implications on fighting games as a whole, but really it leads into the crux of what has caused so much controversy around this and what has people talking, and that is 100 Thieves is part of they're part of the Esports World Cup, right? And so for those of you who don't know what the Esports World Cup is, it started last year. It is an event hosted by Saudi Arabia. And it is pretty much the largest prize pool. Like, it's one of the largest prize pool events that esports has ever seen. It might be the largest, just straight up. And they kind of split it into multiple parts. So each individual tournament, each individual game that's on the lineup for Esports World Cup has its own prize pool. But then they also have something called the Club Championship. And the Club Championship is actually why some of these bigger esports teams that had no interest in fighting games whatsoever, like 100 Thieves had no interest in fighting games at all prior to this, right? But they're now interested in picking up fighting game players because of the Esports World Cup. Well, that's because of the nature of both the club program and the club championship. So I'll go ahead and give a quick explanation for what those are really quick. So the club program is actually a program where if your team gets accepted for it, as you can see, 100 Thieves is right there in the right here in the top left. Where's open the new image? There we go. There we go. So you see 100 Thieves right here in the top left, amongst, there are 32 teams here total. Actually, I think it's 40 teams. Now I think about it. Yeah, there should be 40 teams. And so the interesting part about this is if you get accepted as part of the club partner program, they actually give you, I believe it's $1 million. They give you $1 million for you to use the resource to pick up players and kind of create a team for the Esports World Cup, right? That's like the idea that they're selling. Like, this is a club thing. This is really focused around big orgs. And so orgs need resources in order to be able to pick up players, especially in games that they've never ventured in before. And due to the nature of esports, the salaries for players can be quite inflated, especially depending on the game, right? It takes a lot of money to pick up potential players. In the grand scheme of things, fighting game players are very cheap. When we start talking about some of the bigger games like League of Legends and, Dota 2, CSGO, like those players, their salaries are way, way beyond what we as fighting game players could even hope to expect. So $1 million gets spent very quickly, right? All of these teams have gone through multiple millions of dollars already. Honestly, like, esports teams go through money very, very quickly because it becomes very expensive. But this club program is like kind of like, like a little stimulus package for those who want to be involved with the Esports World Cup. And it's kind of like it's kind of like marketing costs as well, right? Because obviously if these reputable teams are a part of your Esports World Cup, it gives it legitimacy, it makes people care about it more, this and that, right? It's all part of the ecosystem. So as you can see, there are a bunch of teams here, and all of them are given money to kind of create their club. And the club championship, why is it so sought after? It's because there's a lot of money involved with this club championship. For example, last year, the winner of the club championship, which they do a point system. So pretty much all of the games that are part of the Esports World Cup, you can see here, they are given point values depending on how you place in said event. is how many points you get towards your club, and based on how many club points your team has is how much of the prize you get at the end of it, right? So pretty simple concept. You guys have probably seen like leagues and circuits and stuff like that before, right? This is kind of that. So to put it into perspective, you might be wondering, like, it must be a lot if these teams are like really willing to like go this hard, right, to secure these points. It is a lot. It is a lot. So Team Falcons, the team that actually won last year, they got $7 million. And this is $7 million to the club itself, right? So it's important to make note that this is not considered prize winnings for the individuals, right? So like the teams that the players that place in the individual tournaments that give them points to increase their standing in the club championship, right? This is not considered prize for them. It's separate. So the club championship of itself is already $20 million. And so that $20 million is split up in this way. And this goes straight to the org, and they can choose to do with it as they please. They're not necessarily obligated to give players any of this $7 million because each individual tournament, like I said, already has its own prize pool, right? That's important. I think that's an important distinguishing because in their eyes, they're seeing dollar signs. They're like, this is a lot of money, right? So $7 million is a lot, right? That's a lot. If you can manage to like have a good enough team, they perform well enough in enough games, and there are a lot of games, as you guys can see over here. CS:GO. I don't know what this is. This looks like a sports game, like a 2K or something. Fortnite, League of Legends. I think they have the mobile League of Legends. Overwatch is on here. Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, as you guys see from last time. Rainbow Six Siege, Teamfight Tactics, Rocket League, Call of Duty. Right, so like a lot of games and a lot of big games. Right? And so this is why people are so enthused to be a part of the Esports World Cup. It's a lot of fucking money, right? It's a lot of money. Okay, and with that comes some issues, right? Especially when we talk about fighting games, because at the end of the day, this is a fighting game channel, and I want to bring this issue to you guys from the perspective of fighting games. It's very, very important that we keep this issue centered on us, because that's what you guys are here for. Okay, so what's the problem? So the problem is, of course, every year whenever Esports World Cup happens, people have to kind of make a choice. They kind of have to make a choice of whether this is something that they want to go super hard at, and this and that. And I think as the years go on, it's going to get harder and harder for people to make this choice, because it becomes more and more relevant as time goes on, right? Like more and more of the ecosystem is contingent on Esports World Cup as the years progress. And this was the case. I kind of expressed like discontent with this issue with certain like publisher backed circuits as well. Like if we talk about Capcom Cup or like the Arc World Tour or this or that, right? The entire ecosystem is really like centered around it. And in some ways that can be unhealthy, because it's like almost like a monopoly in a certain sense, right? Like that one event is going to have all of the resources and all of the positive marketing and all of this and all of the grassroots efforts that contribute to some of these tours and kind of are given value for them aren't supported as much as they should be in a lot of cases, which I think is a damn shame. And more on that, right? These teams that are like really, really big, these really, really big esports teams that don't really care about fighting games, because fighting games are not the return on investment on a fighting game player is not super high unless you're in Esports World Cup. They've never expressed interest in before, and now they're expressing interest. And that just really just hammers home the point that they really don't care about fighting games. They're not passionate about fighting games. They really just only care about the money, right? And there is a fundamental issue with that, but we're going to talk more about that as we go on. So some prominent members in the community have spoken on this issue lately. Like obviously this is going to keep coming up and keep coming up and keep coming up. It's too much money to ignore. And so the first thing that I saw after the announcement itself was, first of all, nobody knows who this is either. I have no idea who this is going to be, but we'll have to wait and see. But Brian F made a tweet saying, "I hate when I see big orgs teasing sponsoring SF play." This is like literally like an hour or two after this, right? So this is a direct answer to the 100 Thieves announcement. Okay. I hate when I see big orgs teasing sponsoring SF players. I'm not even excited anymore. It's just a quick cash grab for EWC money club points. I hope players are milking these orgs for these short-term deals. They're desperate for that Esports World Cup money. Don't cheap out. So this is like, I think this is totally fine for Brian F to say. And I do think that this is a problem, and it's great that someone as large as him is willing to speak out about this particular thing, especially because, you know, it's in the world of Street Fighter, which is he's obviously like really involved in. This is important, right? So the thing is, like, as time goes on, fighting games, because we don't have as large prize pools, right, as some of these other games, we kind of open ourselves up to be more prone to being taken advantage of. Because the money is just that good, right? There's not that many opportunities, not that many teams that are paying big salaries to fighting game players for pretty much any reason. And so it is, it's easy to, you know, it's for these orgs, like, you know, tossing a good chunk of money to a player is not that much for them. Like I said, these orgs handle millions upon millions upon millions of dollars constantly. It doesn't really hurt them that much to toss some money at a fighting game player, especially if the return on investment does actually seem like it's there, you know, being able to secure some points towards the club championship and have a chance at that $7 million. And so this is important. People are going to be, you know, kind of trying to, you know, sign these fighting game players. And the most important thing, I think, is that people recognize that they need you and you don't necessarily need them. Like, yes, okay, like it's hard to say no to some numbers, right? They've, you know, someone offers you a contract for X amount of money, probably more money than a lot of these players have ever been offered in a contract, right? I will say. Because these teams on this Esports World Cup are huge. They have ridiculous bankroll. Like, you guys wouldn't even begin to imagine. Like, it's fucking crazy. And so, like, it can be difficult to, like, say no to something like that. And to that end, right, I don't think it is fair to necessarily expect anyone to say no to that should the opportunity rear its head, right? There are not that many opportunities to, like, make big money in fighting games as it is. And I think it would be kind of unfair for us to pressure players in such a way that they, you know, don't take something that could be life-changing for them, right? Like, we don't know anybody's circumstances at the end of the day. You know, people might have families to feed. They might have, you know, debt. They might have, there's like any number of things. And like, to not even speak on like the current state of like the stock market and stuff in the United States, it's like, it gets ugly, right? It gets ugly is the point I'm trying to illustrate. So I don't think that like we necessarily have to like super pressure people to like not take these deals and whatnot. But I do think that the nature of these deals are kind of inherently predatory in some ways, right? Just because, like I said, they're kind of dangling a carrot in front of your face and saying like, oh, you know, like, we're going to offer you some money. But they're really only concerned with themselves. They're not really invested in you, and like emotionally, they don't really care about your growth as a player. They don't really care about any of that. They just care about how you perform at the Esports World Cup and nothing more. And so, right, that is something that people need to keep in mind whenever these things come up, because they haven't none of these teams have really demonstrated that they really care. There are some that are already in fighting games and this and that. That's like different, right? But to be, you know, Esports World Cup gets announced and then you sign a player to try to get points. Like, usually it's only like one or two fighting game players. It's like you need to really be aware of like what is happening here. This next point, I hope players are milking these orgs for these short-term deals. So this is what I mean by like, you as the fighting game player, they need you, right? If they want to have the best chance at Esports World Cup money, they need you, right? Because the best strategy, of course, is going to be to have at least a team or a player in every game, right? So you have the maximum amount, the maximum chance at qualifying or getting as many points as possible. Some teams can afford to, like, you know, have multiple players per game, depending on, and teams kind of make a decision on whether that's worth or not. Like, Falcons is a lot of fighting game players. You guys have probably seen Team Falcons a lot, around a lot. They have a lot of fighting game players, and they, you know, they ended up winning. Not solely because of fighting games, but because, you know, they just decided to go really, really hard with picking up players for him. So, yeah, when these teams come to you, you know, at the end of the day, these or esports orgs are businesses, right? Or at least they're trying to be businesses, and businesses always care about cash flow and return on investment. They are going to try to shortchange you. They will, right? Because what they want is they want to pay the least to get the most return, right? And so that's what I mean by like people need to be mindful whenever these teams come to them, because they will try to pay you less than what you're worth. They just will. That's like a part of business, right? You need to make sure that whatever they're paying, it's a lot. It needs to be a lot, because like I said, they need you, not the other way around. Just straight up. If they're not willing to negotiate with you on that end, then maybe you should take your business elsewhere. Obviously, if you're a player that someone is reaching out to for Esports World Cup, you're likely not the only, like, there's usually not just one team that's looking to sign you. If that's the case, if you're good enough to like have your name out there to be recognized as a threat on that scale, usually it's not just one team looking for you. So like you can kind of like shop around, right? And see who's going to give you the best rate and this and that. Important, very, very important, especially when we consider that an overwhelming majority of these are not going to be long-term contracts, right? They're going to be very short-term. They're going to pick you up for Esports World Cup season. When Esports World Cup ends, you're likely dropped, right? That's like the nature of what's going on. Okay, next. Justin Wong says, whoever's getting hit in the DMs and getting sponsored because of the EWC, go get that bread and use everything to build your resume so you maybe one day join your dream team or do your own thing. So he's talking about, you know, use it as an opportunity to kind of you know, build yourself up in a way that you become a valuable asset to the team that you want to be a part of. So even Justin is recognizing that, you know, most of the teams that you're going to sign to are not teams that you're going to want to be on long term, because like I said, these people don't really care about fighting games in a lot of cases, with a few exceptions. There are a few teams on the lineup that like have invested in fighting games even before Esports World Cup. They've shown that they care. It's not that many though. There's not. Now, I've seen the last Esports World Cup season, I saw teams that I never would have dreamed of picking up fighting games, pick up fighting game players. Like Virtus Pro, like if you know anything about the greater esports ecosystem, bro, I would have never expected Virtus Pro to pick up a fighting game player. They've only been in the biggest games like since pretty much esports' inception. They've been in CS, they've been in Dota 2, they've been in, you know, they've been in the really big games. They never even looked in fighting games direction. Esports World Cup comes around, they pick up a fighting game player last year. I believe it was VX Bao on Virtus Pro. I could be wrong about that, but they did pick up a player, right? So that's what I mean by like these teams have never expressed interest in the scene, in these players, in this game in general. They might not even know what the fuck is going on. They likely won't, right? And so that's why it's really important to not be fooled by the idea that, oh, this is really nice, I hope this goes on forever. Most likely it will not. It just won't. That's just not the nature of how this particular thing goes. So, okay, after Justin, we had something from K-Brad, which is really interesting. This was the really the tweet that made me want to make this talk. I found this very fascinating because this was actually a thread between a few different players. K-Brad, Brian F, Kizzy K, and I believe even Sage Jam weighed in on this. So we're going to go through this thread and kind of talk about a few things, right? This is fascinating. This is fascinating stuff. This is like my type of shit. Like I really like that people are having this kind of conversation. I wish conversations like more conversations like this happen on my fighting game timeline, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. It really be like that sometimes. So K-Brad says, this scene is so weird sometimes. Orgs want to come in and throw some bread at your favorite players while flying them all over the world, but because it's not for a year or two, you start shitting on them. Short-term contracts have always existed. So elephant in the room, yes, short-term contracts have always existed, but it would be foolish to not recognize that they are much more common in Esports World Cup like environment, right? Like like yes, they have always existed. There have been cases of people being picked up for certain tour seasons, right? People have been picked up for Arc World Tour. People have been picked up for Capcom Cup. People have been picked up for Tekken World Tour. Those have always happened, right? Those have always happened. But it's definitely there's way more volume of short-term contracts when Esports World Cup is involved, and also most of those teams that are picking up players for Capcom Cup, for Tekken World Tour, for this and that, they are actually like fighting game orgs, right? They're orgs that really do care about fighting games, and they've been in fighting games for a very, very long time, and so the possibility of staying with those teams even after the season end is way higher than getting picked up by an Esports World Cup team. And then staying with them afterwards. So I do think that nuance is important to make note, even though while I think K-Brad does have a point here, I do think there is that nuance, and I think that is kind of being glossed over on his end whenever he's like making this argument. I don't know exactly like what he means by start shitting on them. Like, I do think I think Brian F's tweet was like pretty innocuous, all things considered. I wouldn't really consider that shitting on them, especially because he didn't even name drop. So like I'm not really sure if I would consider this that, but I get it. I get the sentiment here. But this turn into a thread. So let's go down here. So Brian F replies, actually, they're throwing Saudi bread to try to get lucky with getting Esports World Cup club points. Let's just call a spade and advise our players to know the deal and get their max value. Love this. This is like absolutely. This is really good. This is just a really good statement from Brian F. His head is in the right space here, because what he's pretty much saying is like, you need to accept the reality of the situation and try to use that to get as much as you possibly can, because it will be short term. It will not be long term, right? He's not telling them, hey, don't sign the contract. He's saying, if you do sign the contract, take them for all they're worth. And just realize that this is not going to last forever. And I think that's like really good. I do like Brian F's perspective on this particular one. And so we got more replies though. Brian, this is the thing way before Saudi. What are you saying? Player gets let go at the end of the CPT season. Everyone shits on said org. It's just happening more now since East WC is so big. But I would really like to see like what he means by everyone shits on said org, because like I said, like most teams that are picking up players for Capcom Cup, for Tekken World Tour, for Arc World Tour, like they're actual fighting game teams. There's not many teams that aren't heavily involved in fighting games that pick up fighting game players for those tours. And the reason is because even for the world tours of fighting games, the prizes are not big enough to like to where like if the org is taking a cut, it's like not really enough to move the needle, right? Like if you win Capcom Cup, yeah, you get $1 million, but after tax and all that, like it's really not that much that goes to the team, right? It's really not. If they take a cut in the first place, there's a lot of fighting games. There are a lot of fighting game teams that don't take cuts at all, right? They just straight up don't take cuts because the prizes, they're so small. It doesn't impact their bottom line. They try to monetize in other ways by, doing running ads and like, making marketing moves by doing content, using people's streams and people's YouTube videos and this and that. That's like how they see a return in that way. But mostly the monetary, like off of prize pools alone, it's not really things that people are looking for to like sustain them in that way. But let's keep going. It's the only thing that happens now, which is why it's disappointing times. So he's speaking on something that I've brought up a few times, not denying short-term contracts or anything before. And then he says, I respect how you feel about it, but it is what it is. FlyQuest and Shopify are great starts, so let the other orgs follow in their leads. So this is so interesting. So Brian F is actually bringing up the issue that I brought up before, and I've actually talked about this for about probably between 1 and 2 years at this point. Is that he's talking about the fact that the ecosystem is becoming more centralized on Esports World Cup, right? And like I kind of went over this at the beginning of this talk, where as it becomes more and more prevalent, there's less outside of it, right? It suddenly teams and players and orgs feel like, Esports World Cup is the only thing that matters. And this is bad no matter what entity it is. It doesn't matter if those brands are like, if they're naturally in fighting games, like I talked about Capcom Cup being, the only thing that matters in to Street Fighter is very bad, right? It's very, very bad for that to be the case. Just like it's really bad for the Arc World Tour to be the only thing that matters for Grand Blue players or Strive players or Uni players, right? It's not good to have ecosystems that are all centralized on just one thing, right? But these things happen because these are the entities that actually have the bankroll to actually like create that value, right? Not really much that can be done about that at current state, but we can keep speaking and talking about these things because I do think it is important as time goes on. And the K-Brad mentions FlyQuest and Shopify, which is like, I don't know if he's naming this as people that like are doing the short-term contracts or if he's naming them as the people that do the long-term, but like FlyQuest, I don't think this really like illustrates his point if he's talking about like, short terms exist. They've always been a thing and this and that. Like FlyQuest has a whole fighting game division. And before FlyQuest, their fighting game division was CLG, who also had a whole fighting game division. I'm not saying that fighting games was necessarily their entire focus, but they have a whole division with a bunch of fighting game players and they have players signed for multiple years. So I don't think that this is like the direction that he wanted to go in the in the conversation, because like I don't think FlyQuest really qualifies for that. Shopify would be a little bit of a better example. They've kind of only been in fighting games for the past few years, to my knowledge, the last like year or two. I know they had NuckleDo for a while, but they've run like some tournaments and stuff too. They supported the tournament ecosystem, doing some online stuff. So like, yeah, I mean, I could kind of get that. But important thing to note though, right? A really, really important thing to know. What do you see whenever you look at this? You guys notice anything about this picture? Anyone? Anyone notice anything really peculiar about this picture? The interesting thing about this picture is that FlyQuest is not on it. Shopify is not on it. So you're like trying to combat the conversation, right? Like you're trying to make this argument that like, these are great starts, but these are not teams that are on the Esports World Cup. So like, if anything, you're kind of contributing to Brian's point. You're kind of contributing to his point by pointing out teams that are not involved with Esports World Cup, and these are the teams that are willing to, do longer contracts in this. You see what I'm saying? I think he kind of tripped up on himself there, because I don't think that was how he wanted to. I don't think that was how he wanted to do that. We have another thread with Kizzy, I believe, or was it? It was down here, right? Okay, so Kizzy says, yeah, but X wasn't like it when it was back then. What? X wasn't like it when it was back then. I think he's using X as a plate, like he doesn't want to name whatever entity he's talking about. I don't think he's talking about the site here, but now every team got to be like Panda Global again. I mean, like, man, Kizzy still has a very, very big sore spot over what happened with Panda Global and whatnot. And honestly, like, I don't necessarily blame him, but I don't know. I wouldn't really say that like the model that a lot of teams are going off of is necessarily Panda Global in that extent. I think there are some teams that do try to follow in their footsteps. Like I think FlyQuest very much is like trying, like on the fighting game end, is trying to be like Panda Global to some extent, but I don't think that's every team. I don't think that's like, because I think most teams recognize that like it's like not. You can't really do it like that. Like it's kind of hard, right? It's not easy. It's not easy to do it in that way. But yeah, so let's see what Sajam had to weigh in on. I think it's none of those things. If orgs want to offer short-term deals so they can make money for club bonuses, players should ask for a lot of money as compensation. That's it. Boom. Good shit, Sajam. They call Sajam the white Khalil, I hear in some spheres, bro. So good shit on that. But we have more to talk about. I think the majority of these players understand the assignment and they're signing themselves into. I don't know if I'm willing to concede this, to be honest. I don't understand how anything is this being new. I don't think that this is necessarily true, right? I think it's like, this is an assumption made from someone that has been in the industry for a long time. Guys, I'm just joking. I'm just I think this is the perspective of someone that's been in the industry for a long time. You've experienced the highs, you've experienced the lows with Panda. Like you've experienced that. Like you have more perspective than most people. Not most people have been through as long of a history as Kizzy has, and so I think it is foolish to expect that most people understand that. Especially when Esports World Cup is relatively unprecedented. There's never really been anything like it that Fighting Games has been involved in, because like the publisher backed tours that the big games are operating on, like even those aren't on this level, right? They're like Capcom Cup is cool and all, Tekken World Tour is cool and all. None of them are Esports World Cup, bro. Like these are completely different worlds. These are completely different worlds. And so like, I think it is natural that there would be some amount of ignorance from players when they're like getting into this, especially whenever, you know, big dollar signs start to become a factor. So yeah, that's my take on that. Let's keep going. Some folks want the same thing FlyQuest has as well. It may not be what you're stating, but other folks are asking for that X thing. I don't know. Like I have kind of an idea of like what he's alluding to by omission here, but like there's a lot of things that this could be. There's a lot of things this could be. I don't know why he's choosing to keep it nebulous though. I don't know if it's for optics. I don't know if he's afraid of like getting in bad graces or like burning bridges or that, but in my eyes, like if you care enough about a topic to like speak on it in a public forum to your followers, I don't think it does anything for you to hide behind, you know, just omitting names and stuff like that. That's me though, right? Obviously he can do whatever with his platform that he wants, but if you're speaking on it for the good of the scene and the good of those players, I don't think it's in your best interest to do that, because all you're doing is creating more question marks, right? Like you're not giving them the whole picture, and that should be the point. But Sagem says, well, I'm not fighting ghosts. I only know what I think or say. Bro, love this, bro. Bro, people think that I think that there's like an assumption again, like Kizzy is assuming that everyone knows about everything. And I could tell you that that's not true. There's a lot of things that most people in the scene don't know. Even players that are signed to teams, there's a lot of things that they do not know about the teams that they're on alone, much less like we're talking about the greater ecosystem. We're talking about viewers and, you know, this and that. Like a lot of you don't have the perspective of what goes on behind the scenes on esports teams, right? You just don't. And how would you? Because these are private businesses. A lot of the stuff is just not out there. Unless someone tells you, you're not going to know, right? Like you just straight up won't know. And sometimes they get NDA'd, right? Like sometimes it's explicitly in their contract that you can't talk about these things out in public. So yeah, I think this is fair from Sagem saying like, I only know what I think or say. And that's, you know, you can only do so much, bro. We're not omnipotent. We don't, we're not omnipotent. How are we going to know these things? But it's not new either. But these circumstances mean that more money for these short-term contracts makes sense. Absolutely. Club bonus money for Esports World Cup means they should negotiate higher than usual. Yes. 100%. He's right. Okay. What I know for sure is if folks don't like what's happening, don't ruin the next team that does something good for the scene. This is jaded, bro. This is jaded. The crazy part is like Kizzy's on my team now, right? That's a funny thing. But I don't know. When I read this tweet, I just feel like there's a lot of him being jaded and him being like kind of scorned from the Panda situation. Again, like no one can really blame him for that. Like what happened with Panda. Like I get like why you would be upset or this or that, but you can't let that. You can't let that just like invade every single bit of like perspective that you're trying to like get, especially if you're trying to act in good faith. Like I think like I could understand like why you'd feel some type of way still, but I don't think that you're doing this in the right way. If you're actually talking about like for the good of the scene, right, then I don't really necessarily think that this is the best way to go about it. But again, to each their own. Otherwise, you'll retweet the free agency tweets after 6 months. I don't even think it's about liking it or not, because it's always happened. For me, it's about understanding the expected value they want versus cost. It's pretty tangible compared to previous times. Okay? I'm on the fence. As long as they keep getting opportunities to do what they want to do and have a plan afterwards, then I'm all for it. That is my stance, since things can be perceived differently on this website. But I think you're contributing to that though, right? I think like like admitting that, like, yeah, on social media things can get misconstrued, absolutely, like that happens all the time, especially in fighting games. But like, you're purposely omitting information, like by hiding things behind an X and whatnot. Like, I think you're kind of contributing to that problem while also recognizing that it is an issue. I don't know, I think that's like conflicting ideologies. If you're actually like doing this out of the kindness of your heart. But Kizzy, bro, I'm a real human. You know in person it's not about being seen some way on a website. They have a lot of money and they should spend it on our players. That's all I'm saying. I don't see how anyone would like how does anyone argue with this? How does anyone argue with this? Anyone that's like concerned with the good of fighting game players, I don't see how you argue with this. I don't get it. I don't get it. But maybe there was a misunderstanding. I haven't actually seen this part of the conversation. Let's keep going. Little devil's advocate for you. If I say I'll sign you to 2K a month and fly you wherever you want, and you take it, whose fault is it that you didn't get 5K a month that I was willing to spend? But that's not... Wait, but who's blaming... Wait, what? What? Whoa. K-Brad, what do you mean by this, though? Like, whose fault is it that you didn't get the 5K a month that you were willing to spend? But they're literally saying, like, they're on that side, though. They're saying that they should ask for the 5K a month. That's what Sajam and that's what Brian F are saying. They're saying if you get offered a spot on an Esports World Cup team, don't just take the 2K, ask for the 5K, ask for the 10K. That's exactly what side they're on. I don't know why. Like, what do you mean by whose fault is it? That's what they're advocating for them to negotiate for higher rates. That's the point. Okay. I mean, the negotiations for more are totally dependent on the person or team. In this case, though, I think it's on players to understand the context of why the signing is happening, which is the value. Again, exactly what I said, chat. What did I say at the beginning of this? They need you, not the other way around. They need you. So treat them like they need you, right? That's they need a fighting game player if they want to have a fighting chance at the club championship. They need a fighting game player. They need you. Act like it, right? Don't go in there like willing to bow down or take the first offer given to you, because I promise you they have a lot more. All of these teams that are on the Esports World Cup, they have a lot more to give. Trust, they do. All of them, or they would not be there if not. Straight up. Okay, all negotiations can end up with you asking for too little or asking too much and getting the boot, but that's okay. That's okay, because like I said, you're much less likely to be booted for asking too much because they need you. Because they need you. And like I said, most players, I think, that are even in the realm of possibility for being picked up for the Esports World Cup, which isn't that many players, right? It's not that many players that can actually get picked up on an Esports World Cup team to compete in that sphere, right? If one team is looking to pick you up, it's likely that multiple teams are. If they're actually looking for fighting game players, there's probably not just one team that's looking for you. Like, you'll be all right, I think, as long as if you like understand like how this realm of business works, you'll be okay. I don't think you have to treat it like, oh my god, like I'll never recover from this. Like, I respect this answer, but any org that just gives you the boot for asking for too much isn't an org you should be representing anyway. But what? Wait, I feel like K-Brad is kind of like maybe he like changed his perspective, but partway through this, because this is like this is just right. Like this is correct. This is correct, but like your previous statements don't necessarily indicate that this is what you thought before. But yeah, no, this is actually just yeah. If a team like boots you for asking for higher salary, right? It's not worth it. It's not worth it, because like that means they're looking to be predatory, right? They're only looking to take advantage of you, and whenever you ask for a higher rate, they feel some type of way and they boot you. Like that's a red flag, right? If you say, hey, I won't sign to the team for less than X amount, right? And you're not willing to negotiate and this and that, and they decide to not go with you, that's like totally fine. But you asking for more than they offer, and then them saying like, fuck you, like, yeah, bro, like that, of course, you don't want to be a part of that anyway. But again, right, the nature of these short-term contracts, which you were saying like happen all the time and this and that, right, lend people more towards maybe representing a team that they don't necessarily vibe with for long periods of time to secure the bag, right? That's like then more people are going to be enticed to do that when contracts are short, when it's 6-month contracts, when it's just a year contracts. Like, more people are going to be willing to lax their like bounds of what they believe is acceptable and what they believe is not acceptable in order to, you know, get money, which again, you can't blame the players for, but I think you have to like keep that in mind when you're having conversations like this. Yeah, in this case, we know that orgs are running around scooping up players. So asking for a lot, especially if you're already qualified, means you'll end up somewhere. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's just straight up true. So yeah, this was an interesting thread. Like, I thought this was an interesting thread because this was like a bunch of different entities that obviously have pretty high standing in the community, and they all have very different perspectives because they kind of occupy different spaces within fighting games. So yeah, that was interesting to me, and that's actually, this thread is exactly what prompted me to make this video in the first place. One last thing, El Chicote wanted to add this last little part on here because I saw this pop up this morning and I thought it was a little bit funny, though unfortunate. He said, got emailed from a team that's in Esports World Cup before I even made a tweet about looking for a team. The person who emailed me is no longer with the team shortly after contacting me with a full-on offer. Today, I had someone else on the team confirm that they are no longer offering me this. This is the nature of esports, really. Like, this happens all the time. This happens all the time where like people that are in certain positions are not there for very long, and the direction that a team gets taken in under certain people is different whenever new people get brought on, or whenever people just change direction altogether. And so, like, unfortunately, the players get left out to dry in those cases, right? And this is kind of like, again, illustrating kind of the cutthroat, the cold-blooded nature of like being involved with something like Esports World Cup, right? They are literally just they're just looking at it like a business. They're not invested as you as a human being, as a player, and none of that. They're just looking for you to get their points and fuck off. That's it, right? That's what happens. They're not concerned with being honorable. They're not concerned with respect. They're not concerned with any of that, right? So as long as the players that are getting involved with this like understand that in their minds, then you can at least like put up a shield of defense so you don't get taken advantage of. But this type of thing, I think, was really important to. I'm really glad that he made this tweet this morning, because I think this adds quite a lot to the context that I'm like trying to set up here. So yeah, so that's like my thoughts on the Esports World Cup. Obviously, like I said, more and more people are going to talk about this as time goes on, as it becomes more relevant, as these teams, like, because we're in the season, right? We're in the season where people are starting to get picked up on these really, really big teams, and everyone's like, oh shit, this is so cool, not understanding that they might not be there for that long. Like, you can be happy for them for securing the bag, but I hope that these players all have a plan, have an exit strategy, because the exit, it will be there. You will not be on these teams for long. That's just how it goes. So yeah, that's what I thought about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the talk. This one was a little bit longer, but it'd be like that sometimes. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next video later.